Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with KC-based jazz vocalist and show organizer Kelley Gant. She is spearheading a series of jazz performances titled The Spine Showcases, kicking off the second half of 2019 with a Kickstarter fundraising campaign. Organized by musicians, the series spotlights Kansas City's emerging jazz composers. Launched in January of 2019, it is a diverse range of styles and approaches to jazz that are represented, like Logan Richardson, Hermon Mehari, Bowman, Peter Schamb, Ryan Lee, and so many more. This is supported in part by the Charlotte Street Foundation and held monthly in the Charlotte Street Capsule performance venue. Please get to know her, this project, and dig this interview, my friends.
Hey, thank you for taking a minute to talk to me about the Spine Showcases and kind of the furtherance of jazz here in Kansas City.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Sure. So the title of these jazz performances are the Spine Showcases. It's going to kick off the second half of the 2019 series. You got a Kickstarter campaign. You got a lot of really promising cats that are going to be a part of this, from Logan Richardson, Bowman, Amber Underwood. There's a lot of names. There's a lot going on. So why don't you kind of start at the top here with the conception of this, or maybe let's talk a little bit about who you are and what your role as a musician and kind of an entrepreneur in this process is.
Yeah, I've been in Kansas City now for 7 years, and found as soon as I moved here, the jazz community was totally open and willing to help me, gave me all kinds of opportunities to get my feet wet. I started playing with Everett Devan often at the Phoenix, hosting a jazz jam, and pretty soon started leading my own ensembles, doing mostly standards, occasionally throwing in an original tune or a cover of something a little bit different, Elvis Costello or Tom Waits, something along those lines. But I've just been here kind of doing that thing for a while now, and noticed that a lot of the frustration that I have about not having a place to play my music, my original stuff, or not being able to find an audience is something that seems to be a common theme with a lot of the musicians that I know. So it seemed like a good time to try to address that and actually do something about it by creating this series. The
Charlotte Street partnership, that's a pretty big arts umbrella here in the Kansas City area. So kind of give me an idea of how all of this is kind of coming together, so to speak.
So the Charlotte Street has been more or less gifted this space at 17th and Broadway for them to use to do any kind of programming that they like. And they published an open call back in maybe October, I think, is when I applied for it. I had just been hanging out with Rich Wheeler and talking about, kind of the frustrations, and we were just talking about the scene and stuff like that. And he mentioned that there are all kinds of grants and I should really just start applying for them and see if I can do anything. And this open call was due in a few days, I think. So I submitted as soon as I could, and they awarded me the chance to use their space on a monthly basis. They also do a ton of marketing for each show. They create great posters. They take photos of every event, so we've got beautiful documentation of every event that's happened, and they get Boulevard beer just donated to them. They put it on ice for us, and they're amazing. They're great and help a lot. They also give me a small stipend, but it's with what I'm paying musicians, it's not quite. It's paying like 1 1/5 of a musician. So the Kickstarter is to make up for the rest of that money that I'm not getting out of the Charlotte Street. They're not just handing out money, but they are just giving me this space to use. And people there at the space helping me set everything up, the staging, the lighting, they're amazing.
Right on. So, the interesting thing about the Kansas City jazz scene is that at the end of the day, if you look at the jazz calendar, there are gigs that are pages long each night in this town. There's always something going on. Mm-hmm. But from a crowd perspective, there may not be as many, or it may not be as lucrative as the musicians want. So it's an interesting time in Kansas City. I would say the jazz carousel has come around to kind of a renaissance period. We're not just dealing with ghosts. We're dealing with actual people that not only are here today that are doing it, but those that have kind of even moved on, like Logan Richardson and Hermon Mehari. And, there's a lot of people that are here doing it that are going to be a part of this showcase. So give me an idea of why Kansas City is such a vital place and this is a vital showcase, and this makes sense, and it's only going to do exactly what you want it to do?
I'm not sure that it's going to do exactly what I want it to do, but it's worth investigating. I'm not sure why Kansas City is the way that it is. It's a small city. It's easily accessible. We can find each other, these musicians, so there's a lot of kind of synergy happening. There's this amazing heritage and history in jazz, and not only like that 4/4 feel that came out of Kansas City, but the idea of Kansas City being a place where innovators would go to develop and come up with a sound. You know, that's really deep in our history. I don't know if that's affecting the scene right now or not, but I imagine it's just in the water at this point. But yeah, I think this series makes sense because we have, like you said, we have so many gigs, so many venues. People even tell me when they come in from town, like, oh, I met a friend of yours at the airport. He was playing and da-da-da-da-da. You know, so the jazz is all over, but often we don't have as many listening stages as we'd like. So I think this makes sense because it's kind of filling that hole, because we do have wonderful stages like the Gym is amazing, and the Folly has a great series, and there are multiple series, but that seems to be maybe a little bit more catered towards crowds that want to hear something that's really polished and done and is out there. You know, they want to re-experience something they heard on a recording maybe, or they want to see a really big name. And for the local musicians, it can be really tough to get onto that kind of a stage to have just an attentive audience listening to your work. So I think that this is going to be a good opportunity for that. Our audiences so far have been wonderful. They come in, they're up to listen to whatever. They don't usually have expectations about what they're going to hear. They hear two different ensembles, and they're usually not, I don't pair ensembles to try to have complementary music necessarily. It's just I want everybody to get a chance to get through the showcases, so it's just whose schedule is working with this. So we can have vastly different ensembles on one night, but it's a 45 minutes or an hour-long set, and the audience is up to listen to it, even if it's not at all their kind of thing.
One follow-up to that real quick, and it's this. Do you get the idea that whenever these crowds leave, that they're kind of transformed and they've never seen anything like this, like they become a fan of jazz?
Some of our audience members come away from the shows with a different idea of the Kansas City jazz music scene. Some people are not aware of the multiple different approaches to jazz, or that, oh, you can do that, you can play that kind of a thing. But a lot of the people in our audience are veterans. You know, they know personally most of the band members, or we're preaching to the choir basically with some of these folks. So I think they're happy to get to see this stuff. But there are some audience members definitely who seem to leave with new concepts about what's available in this city. I don't know if they're transformed, but I hope that they come back.
Right on. So how would you sell this Kickstarter campaign? Not only the Kickstarter campaign, but someone that's, I guess it's a two-part question. If you have the opportunity right now to tell somebody why it's important for them to contribute to this campaign, and then why it's important for somebody that's wanting to go out one night and see live music, why this would be the place for them to go.
So I think the biggest reason to contribute is that this is it's a showcase opportunity, and it's a different level of engagement that you can get as a listener. So we won't be able to continue to do this without their contributions. And if they are fans of improvisation or jazz, they'll need to spend a lot of money on expensive tickets to go see big concerts, or they'll need to put up with the person at the table next to them talking over the bass solo. If they are fans, then I think they'll want to respond to this so that, you know, they can actually listen to the music when it's happening. I think that's the biggest selling point. The Kickstarter is also just necessary because musicians should be paid for this. I'm paying every musician, even though they're doing an hour-long set, I'm paying them for a full night because they are taking off an entire night's worth of music. They could be going somewhere and playing 4 hours and making the same money there, or a little bit more. If I'm only paying them for an hour of their time, for example, like $25 or $50 or something like that, they can't afford to come and play. So the Kickstarter is allowing us to pay everybody what they deserve so that people can take this opportunity, so they can play their original music, so they can test their ideas in front of an audience, kind of sink or swim on some of these songs. So it's a big part of developing a sound, being able to go out there and play your original music. And Kickstarter supporters are going to be the kind of people that just want to support that and want to witness that. So why come and see us? First of all, it is free. The Kickstarter hopefully will be funded, and the fans of the music or the people that are invested in this are basically footing the bill for anybody else who wants to come in and check it out, although we will take donations night of. But you can walk in, you can see 2 sets of new material that you haven't heard before. Often you're hearing your favorite musicians in town, but you're hearing them play the material that they can't really sell in a crowded, noisy room, or, just stuff that they don't take a chance on performing because maybe it's not as crowd-friendly, maybe it's not ready, maybe it's not as polished. So you really get the opportunity to see something brand new. And Boulevard Brewery gives us free beer, so you can also just come in and have a drink and hang out and see something brand new for $0.
That's perfect. To me, that's a perfect selling point. Kelley, thank you for opening up about your life in jazz a little bit, about this new series, and hopefully it really gains steam and just showcases what great music we have in this town and a great jazz scene.
Absolutely. I hope so. We want to do it through 2020 because even though I get to fit in so many people in the schedule, there are just dozens more that deserve this chance to showcase their work.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Kansas City and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Kelley for her time, her music, and her stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com. And for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.